Putin threatens Turkish president. He can go to hell, along with his ISIS terrorists. I will make Syria a big Stalingrad for him. Vladimir Putin seemed intent on restoring Russia to its glory days, and is willing to throw around some muscle and threaten allies to make his point. He recently destroyed traditional diplomatic protocols by summoning Turkish ambassador to Moscow, Mr. Yardim, and threatened to cease diplomatic relations unless Turkey and the Turkish president rekept the Erdogan to stop providing support to ISIS in Syria, where the Russians have a navy base in the Mediterranean Sea. Of course, the question now becomes if Mr. Putin is making those threats to tamp down the violence cutting through the Middle East that is being undertaken by ICE and other insurgent Muslim military groups, or if Putin is merely projecting the military might into other nations in the same way they drove the Russian presence into Ukrainian lands. They can go to hell, along with his ISIS terrorists. I will make Syria a big Stalingrad for them. The Russian president went into a long diatribe criticizing the Turkish foreign policy and its malevolent role in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen by supporting Saudi-backed al-Qaeda terrorists, reported the Moscow Times, with escalation in conversation with the Turkish ambassador to a fierce rhetoric. According to the leaked information obtained by Moscow, the meeting between Mr. Putin and Turkish ambassador was intense with mutual resentment, where Mr. Yardim had repudiated all Russian accusations, laying blame on Russia for Syria's bitter and protracted civil war. Then tell your dictator president he can go to hell, along with all of his ISIS terrorists. I shall make Syria but nothing but a big Stalingrad for Erdogan, and his Saudi allies are no vicious than Adolf Hitler, reported Vladimir Putin in the 2-hour closed-door meeting with the Turkish emissary. Putin then continued his lecture, saying Russia has no intention of abandoning the Syrian regime and that he will continue to cooperate with Iran and China, Syrian allies, in an effort to find a solution to the civil strife being effected in the Syrian nation. The bigger question of this is its attempt to Putin to provide some stability to the region, or if just a continuation of his nation-building activities. Putin orders anti-aircraft missile to Syria. As NATO allies rush to Turkey's defense, both experts and Russian officials are pointing to Ankara's complicity in the growth of Islamic State. Heightening the threat of further escalation, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the deployment of sophisticated anti-aircraft missile systems to Syria on Wednesday, saying the measure was necessary to ensure flight safety after Turkey shot down a Russian warplane on Tuesday. The S-400 missile system will be sent to Russian Hamahem Air Base, located roughly 30 miles south of the Turkish border in Syria coastal province of Latakia. The systems are capable of targeting jets with deadly precision. Russia also verified on Wednesday that the navigator, the fighter jet, is alive and well after a successful 12-hour rescue operation by a Syrian Special Forces unit. However, further complicating matters, the plane's pilot and marine sent in and rescued the airmen were both killed Tuesday, reporting by rebel fighters armed with U.S.-supplied missiles. In addition to the S-400, Russia has also ordered its missile cruiser Moskvia with its long-range air defense system to move closer to shore, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said Wednesday, so that it may be ready to destroy any aerial target posing a potential danger to our aircraft. Shoigu told a meeting of military officials that Russian bombers would also now be accompanied by fighters during all the combat missions in Syria. Amid these increasing military tensions, the United Nations and NATO both issued statements calling for restraint on Tuesday. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg asked for the calm and de-escalation, while maintaining that the alliance backs Turkey accounting of the events because Turkey is a NATO member. Let's take their side and believe everything that they say. Now, if the Russians were to retaliate, NATO would be obliged to intervene, which would then set off what would be known as official World War III. Though NATO allies have rushed to Turkey's defense, Both experts and Russian officials are pointing to the country's complicity in the growth of Islamic State. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who canceled his plans to Turkey after the incident, no shit, anybody would, described the shooting down of a Russian plane as a planned provocation. And President Russian Putin said it was a stab in the back. He said the Turkish actions came after Russian planes successfully targeted oil infrastructure used by Islamic State group, alleged that the Turkey benefited from the oil trade. Lavrov also said that Turkish territory was used by terrorists to prepare attacks in other countries, but offered no details. He said that Russia has no intentions to go with war with Turkey, but added that Moscow will reconsider its ties with Ankara. As for what's next, Putin told reporters Wednesday, "After what happened yesterday, we cannot rule out the possibility of new incidents. And if such incidents should occur, we will have to react one way or the other." President Putin, by shooting down our fighter jets, Turkey has practically declared war on our mother Russia. Turkish dictator Erdogan is an accomplice in the ISIS crimes. According to the Moscow Times, the Russian President Vladimir Putin held an emergency cabinet meeting at the Kremlin to evaluate the implications of the downing of a Russian Su-24 fighter jet near the Syrian-Turkish border area. "Today they practically declared war on us by shooting down our fighter jets. Our patience swears thin with Erdogan and his criminal clique, who is accomplice in all the atrocities committed by the ISIS terrorists. To avoid a bitter war which nobody craves, for the several times I told the Americans to muzzle their rabid dog in Turkey." Russian news agent TASS cited the Russian president as saying, "I was informed that the Turks have shot down a Russian aircraft on the border with Syria, and reported the navigator has also been killed from a parachute, which is a war crime. To shoot someone in a parachute. My deepest condolences to his family and the great Russian nation," said Mr. Putin, vowing that the revenge is what the Turkish dictator will receive in return. "We are indeed on the verge of an all-out war with the godfather of all terrorists in one of the extremely volatile areas in the world," added Mr. Putin. "We worked diligently to solve the Syrian crisis through diplomatic means, but by that international community, the Turkish AK Party-led regime under Erdogan seeks to ignite the fires of war." Russian Defense Ministry, in a series of tweets, confirmed a Russian Su-24 had been shot down, but insisted the plane had never left Syrian airspace, and claimed that fire from the ground was responsible. All at times, the Su-24 was exclusively over the territory of Syria, the Defense Ministry said. The Su-24 was at 6,000 meters, and preliminary information suggests it was brought down by fire from the ground. These circumstances are being investigated. Tensions between Turkey and Russia have risen over Moscow's bombing campaign against Islamist rebels close to the Turkish border. Turkey has repeatedly expressed concern over the attacks on the Islamic State positions.